I used to think 7 years of marriage meant something. That the countless nights, planning our future, the shared dreams, the way Samantha looked at me across our dining table, all added up to forever. But one phrase changed everything. 3 words I was never supposed to hear, spoken casually over wine glasses while I stood frozen in our hallway. Practice husband. That is what I was to her. A stepping stone, a rehearsal for something better. I wish I could say I confronted her immediately, but the truth is more complicated. If you want to know how I transformed from a practice husband to showing her what a practice divorce looks like, stick around. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button as we dive into the most painful chapter of my life that eventually led to my freedom. I met Samantha back in 2016 at a company mixer downtown. I was not even planning to attend that night, but my coworker convinced me to go at the last minute. She was standing by the bar laughing with some friends, and I remember thinking she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Her blonde hair caught the light every time she moved her head, and when she smiled, tiny dimples appeared at the corners of her mouth. I gathered my courage and walked over to introduce myself. To my surprise, we hit it off immediately. We talked for hours that night, long after her friends had left and the event had wound down. There was something magnetic about her energy, her quick wit, and the way she seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. I was so nervous that I spilled water on myself within the first 5 minutes. Instead of being embarrassed, Samantha laughed and purposely knocked over her own glass to make me feel better. That was the kind of person I thought. She was generous, kind, someone who would never want to see another person uncomfortable. Over the next several months, we fell deeply in love. We took a spontaneous camping trip to Montana, where we stayed up all night talking under the stars. I taught her how to fish, and she taught me how to make her grandmother's famous lasagna. Every moment felt significant, like we were building something substantial, brick by brick. I proposed a year after we met on the anniversary of that company mixer. I took her back to the same venue which I had rented out for just the 2 of us. When I got down on one knee, her eyes filled with tears, and she said yes, before I could even finish asking the question. The wedding followed 6 months later, a small but intimate ceremony in the fall of 2017 with close friends and family. We bought our first house together in the suburbs of Portland. It needed work, but we were excited to make it our own. I would come home from my software engineering job to find Samantha painting walls or arranging furniture. She worked as a marketing specialist at a prominent firm and often brought her creative energy home. We spent weekends renovating, arguing playfully about color schemes and furniture placement, but always ending the day curled up together, satisfied with our progress. When I lost my job during company layoffs in 2019, Samantha stood by me. She picked up extra projects at work while I sent out resumes and went to interviews. For 3 months, she was our primary provider, never once complaining or making me feel lesser for my unemployment. When I finally landed a better position at a more stable company, we celebrated, as if I had won the lottery. Our plans for the future were clear: save for a bigger house, start trying for children in a year or 2, build a life together that would last into old age. I imagined us gray-haired, sitting on a porch somewhere, still holding hands, still making each other laugh. That was the dream I held on to, the future I worked toward every single day. But around our 5th wedding anniversary, things began to change subtly. Samantha started spending more time with her single friends from work: Jessica, Tiffany, Lauren, and Heather. At first, I did not think much of it. Everyone needs friends outside their marriage, and I was happy she had people to confide in and have fun with. Yet the frequency of these girls' nights increased. Once a month became once a week, then twice a week. She would come home late, smelling of wine and perfume, crawl into bed beside me, and fall asleep without saying much about her evening. When I asked about her friends, her answers grew vague. She would say they just talked about work or celebrity gossip, nothing important. But the distance between us widened. Conversations that once flowed easily became stilted. Intimacy that had once been natural became scheduled and eventually rare. I tried to adapt, thinking perhaps this was just a phase all marriages go through. I suggested date nights, weekend getaways, even marriage counseling. But Samantha always had an excuse. She was too busy with work, too tired, or insisted everything was fine, and I was overthinking things. Small disagreements that we would have resolved quickly in the past began to linger, festering into deeper resentments. The way she loaded the dishwasher, the tone I used when asking about her day, the money she spent on clothes. These trivial matters became battlegrounds. I was walking on eggshells in my own home, unsure what might trigger her irritation. Still, I never imagined what was really happening beneath the surface. I still believed in us, in the foundation we had built. That belief would soon be shattered in a way I never could have anticipated. It was Samantha's 32nd birthday, and she wanted to celebrate with her friends at our home. I was excited for the opportunity to reconnect, to show her how much I cared. I spent days planning the perfect menu, cleaning the house until it sparkled, and selecting gifts I knew she would love. The evening started well. Jessica arrived first, bringing an expensive bottle of champagne. Tiffany, Lauren, and Heather followed shortly after, each bearing gifts and more alcohol. They gathered in our living room, which I had decorated with photos of Samantha throughout the years, and her favorite flowers. I served appetizers and poured drinks, happy to play host while the women caught up. Their laughter filled our home, a sound I had missed. Samantha seemed relaxed and happy, more like the woman I had fallen in love with than the distant stranger of recent months. As the evening progressed and the wine flowed freely, I became the background character in my own home. I did not mind. Seeing Samantha enjoy herself was enough for me. I moved between the kitchen and living room, refreshing drinks and bringing out food content to be the supportive husband. I was returning with a fresh bottle of wine when I heard my name mentioned. Instinctively, I paused in the hallway, just out of sight of the living room. Jessica was speaking, her words slightly slurred from alcohol. "Oh, come on, Sam," she said. "Don't you ever regret getting married so young? You could have experienced so much more." I froze the bottle clutched in my hands, waiting for Samantha's response. What came next would change everything. "Oh, Roberto," Samantha replied, her voice casual as if discussing the weather. "He is just my practice husband. Everyone needs one before finding Mr. Right." The women erupted in laughter, but I could barely hear it over the roaring in my ears. Practice husband. Was that all I was to her? A trial run. A placeholder until something better came along. "Honestly," Jessica continued, "I always thought you settled. You could have done better." I know, Samantha sighed. "Roberto is nice and stable, but sometimes nice gets boring. You know, I was young and thought that was what I wanted. Security, reliability, all that stuff. But now I am not so sure." "So what are you going to do about it?" asked Tiffany. "You are still young and gorgeous. Plenty of men would line up for a chance with you." There was a pause, and I held my breath, willing Samantha to defend our marriage, to say she was just joking, that she loved me and could not imagine life without me. "I have been talking to this guy at work, Jake," Samantha finally said. "He is everything Roberto is not. Exciting, spontaneous, ambitious. We have been meeting for coffee to discuss projects, but I think it could be more." "Well, that is what practice husbands are for," laughed Heather. "They keep you comfortable while you figure out what you really want." "Exactly," Samantha agreed. "And they make the divorce settlements generous because they feel guilty for not being enough." Another round of laughter followed, but I had heard enough. I retreated to the kitchen, setting down the wine bottle with trembling hands. My chest felt hollow, as if someone had reached inside and scooped out all my vital organs. 7 years together reduced to practice. A joke shared among friends who had never respected me or our marriage. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to regain my composure. I could not confront her now, not in front of her friends, not when I was still processing what I had heard. Instead, I put on a mask of normalcy, returned to the living room with the wine, and continued playing the role of devoted husband for the remainder of the evening. As they ate the cake I had specially ordered from Samantha's favorite bakery, as they opened the gifts I had carefully selected, as they toasted to more birthdays and adventures, I watched my wife with new eyes. Who was this woman who could so casually dismiss our life together? Had anything between us ever been real? The party eventually wound down, the friends hugged goodbye, and Samantha and I were left alone in our suddenly too quiet house. She was tipsy and happy, seemingly oblivious to the bomb that had detonated in my world. She kissed my cheek, thanked me for the lovely evening, and went upstairs to bed. I stayed downstairs mechanically, cleaning up my mind, replaying her words on a torturous loop. Practice husband. Practice husband. Practice husband. That night I lay awake beside her, studying the face of the woman I had thought would be my forever. Her features, so familiar and loved, now seemed to belong to a stranger. How many nights had I held her, thinking we were building a life, while she was merely using me as a stepping stone to something better? How long had she been meeting this Jake for coffee, planning her escape, while I planned our future sleep? Eluded me entirely. By morning, I had moved from shock to pain, to a cold, clear anger that would fuel me through the weeks to come. The days following Samantha's birthday party were surreal. I went through the motions of normalcy. Wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch television, go to bed. But internally, I was in turmoil, analyzing every moment of our relationship for signs I had missed. Clues that might have warned me I was just a placeholder in her life. Samantha noticed nothing unusual in my behavior, which only confirmed how disconnected we had become. She continued her routine as if nothing had changed, while I watched her with new awareness, cataloging every suspicious action. She spent more time on her phone than ever before, angling the screen away when I entered the room. Her work hours grew longer. She would come home and immediately shower, washing away evidence of where she had been, who she had been with. I began paying attention to details I had previously ignored out of trust. I noticed how she would step outside to take certain calls, how she had changed her phone password, how she had started dressing differently, more fashionable clothes, more makeup, more effort for someone who was not me. 2 weeks after the party, I decided to do something I had never considered before. While Samantha was in the shower, I checked her phone. She had left it on the kitchen counter, and for once it was unlocked. My hands shook as I scrolled through her messages, knowing this invasion of privacy marked a new low in our relationship, but unable to stop myself. There it was, conversation after conversation with Jake. Some were innocuous discussions about work projects, but others were more personal. Flirtatious messages, inside jokes, complaints about me. The evidence of an emotional affair, if not a physical one yet, was undeniable. One message from the previous day stood out. Cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Same place, same time. Roberto thinks I'm at a client dinner. I took screenshots and sent them to my own phone, then carefully replaced hers, exactly as I had found it. That night, when she announced she had a client dinner the following evening, I simply nodded and said I hoped she would enjoy herself. The next day, instead of going to work, I waited in my car a block from our house. I watched as Samantha left, dressed more carefully than any client dinner would warrant. I followed her at a distance, heart pounding, until she parked downtown near a boutique hotel. And there was Jake waiting for her on the sidewalk, tall and confident in an expensive suit. I watched them embrace, saw him kiss her cheek, his hand lingering on her lower back as he guided her inside. I did not follow them in. I did not need to see more. The truth I had been circling for weeks was now concrete, undeniable. My marriage was over. It had been over for longer than I realized. That evening, I drove to my friend Tony's house. I had known Tony since college, and he was the one person I could trust completely. I broke down in his living room, the full weight of betrayal finally crashing over me. Tony listened, offered me a spare bedroom, and poured me a drink stronger than I usually allowed myself. The following day, I called my sister Maria. She had never fully warmed to Samantha, sensing something I had been blind to. When I told her what had happened, her anger on my behalf was validating. Maria was not surprised, which hurt in its own way. Had everyone seen the truth except me? Between Tony and Maria, I began to formulate a plan. I would not be the passive, pathetic husband who begged his cheating wife to stay. I would not give Samantha the satisfaction of breaking up with me when she finally decided Jake was a better option. If she wanted to treat our marriage as practice, I would show her what a practice divorce looked like. I decided to confront her first, to give her one chance to be honest, to see if there was anything worth salvaging. That night, when she returned home, I was sitting at our dining table, calm and composed despite the storm raging inside me. Samantha, we need to talk, I said as she set down her purse. She looked surprised but sat down across from me. Can it wait? I am exhausted. No, it cannot wait. I heard what you said at your birthday party, about me being your practice husband. Her face paled, the first genuine reaction I had seen from her in months. You were eavesdropping. I was bringing wine to your friends, and overheard. Is that all I have been to you, practice? She recovered quickly, her expression shifting to defensive irritation. You are taking it out of context. It was just girl talk, just joking around. And Jake, is he just a joke too? Her eyes widened. What about Jake? I know you were with him today. Not at a client dinner. I know about the texts, the coffee meetings, all of it. Samantha's facade cracked. She went from defensive to tearful. In an instant, a transformation that would have moved me weeks ago but now felt calculated. It is not what you think, she insisted. We are just friends. I have been confused, unhappy, but I have not cheated on you. We argued for hours. She admitted to the emotional affair but swore nothing physical had happened. She cried. She apologized. She promised to break off contact with Jake. But when I asked her directly if she still wanted our marriage, if she ever had her hesitation, told me everything. It is complicated, she finally said. I do love you, Roberto. You have been good to me. But sometimes I wonder if we got married too young, if we should have experienced more before settling down. There it was again. Settling. I had never once felt I was settling with her. I had chosen her wholeheartedly and without reservation. But she had merely settled for me and was already planning her upgrade. I think we need some space, I said finally. I will sleep on the couch for now. That night, as I lay awake on our living room sofa, I finalized my plan for what I now thought of as the practice divorce. Over the next few weeks, I moved with calculated precision. I consulted with a divorce attorney, Andrew Patterson, who helped me understand my rights and options. I gathered financial documentation, made copies of our joint accounts, and began separating my money into a new private account. I found a small apartment across town, signing a 6-month lease, and paying the security deposit from my personal savings. I did not furnish it yet, that would come later. For now, it was simply a landing place, somewhere to go when the time came. I backed up all the evidence of Samantha's affair, both the screenshots from her phone and additional messages I had discovered when checking our shared computer. I was not planning to use them in divorce proceedings. I wanted this to be as clean and quick as possible, but I kept them as insurance. All the while, Samantha and I engaged in an elaborate dance of reconciliation. She had ended things with Jake, or so she claimed. She suggested couples therapy, date nights, a second honeymoon, all the things I had proposed months ago when I first sensed the distance growing between us. I went along with it, not because I believed we could fix what was broken, but because I needed time. Time to prepare, time to strengthen myself for what was coming. We attended 2 therapy sessions where Samantha cried and talked about her confusion, and I sat silently, already gone in all but physical presence. I told no one about my plans except Tony and Maria, who helped me move essential items to my new apartment bit by bit when Samantha was at work. Clothes I rarely wore, books I wanted to keep, family heirlooms that were mine before the marriage. Small enough absences that Samantha would not notice, but enough that I would not be starting from zero. The opportunity I had been waiting for arrived when Samantha announced she had a 3-day business trip to Seattle. Originally, she had asked me to join her to make a mini vacation of it after her meetings were done. I declined, citing work deadlines, and watched the relief flash across her face before she could hide it. The morning she left, I kissed her goodbye at the door, told her to have a safe trip, and waited until her car turned the corner before I began. Tony arrived with his truck 30 minutes later, and together with Maria, we worked efficiently. We took half of everything that was solely mine, and left everything that was hers or jointly purchased. By mid-afternoon, my new apartment contained the essentials of my life. My clothes hung in the closet, my books lined, makeshift shelves, my computer sat on a desk Tony had given me. It was sparse but functional. A new beginning. Back at the house, I left a letter on the dining table. The same table where I had confronted her weeks before. In it, I explained exactly why I was leaving, quoting her practice husband comment, and detailing the pain it had caused me. I explained that I knew about Jake, about the lies, about the coffee dates that were more than professional meetings. I did not rant or rave. I did not call her names or make threats. I simply stated the facts as I knew them, and my decision to end our marriage. I told her my lawyer would be in touch, that I hoped we could handle this maturely, and that I wished her well in finding the non-practice husband she truly wanted. I left my key and wedding ring beside the letter. Before I left for the final time, I took a moment to walk through the house we had shared. The living room where we had watched movies cuddled under blankets. The kitchen where we had cooked Sunday brunches. The backyard where we had planned to build a swing set for children we would never have. I thought I would feel sadness in these moments, but instead I felt liberation. I was no longer a practice run, no longer a stepping stone. I was reclaiming my life, my dignity, my future. I texted my family and close friends that same evening, a brief message explaining that Samantha and I had separated and asking for privacy during this difficult time. I deliberately did not vilify her or share the details of her betrayal. The high road was narrow and sometimes lonely, but I was determined to walk it. Samantha called me 27 times that night when she returned home early from her trip and found half her life missing. I let each call go to voicemail. She alternated between furious accusations and tearful pleas, between threatening legal action and begging for another chance. When I finally answered, my voice was calm, decisive. There is nothing left to discuss, Samantha. You made your choice long before I made mine. This is not a practice divorce. This is real. She came to my workplace the next day, causing a scene that embarrassed us both. She contacted my sister, who refused to give her my new address. She even reached out to Tony, who simply told her I was finally doing what I should have done months ago. As word spread among our social circle, reactions were mixed. Jessica called me, awkwardly apologizing for her role in the birthday party conversation. Some mutual friends took sides, most giving me sympathetic looks and assurances that I deserved better. What surprised me most was how quickly Samantha moved on once she realized I would not be coming back. Within weeks, she and Jake were officially together. She agreed to the divorce terms without much fight, perhaps eager to begin her next chapter with her non-practice partner. The divorce was finalized 6 months after I left, remarkably quick and painless as legal proceedings go. We divided assets according to the agreement my lawyer had drafted, sold the house, and went our separate ways. The last time I saw her was at the signing, where she looked at me with an expression I could not quite decipher: regret, perhaps, or simply recognition of what she had lost. The year following my divorce was one of profound healing and rediscovery. The small apartment became a sanctuary where I could rebuild myself, piece by piece. I redecorated slowly, choosing each item with intention, creating a space that reflected the person I was becoming rather than the husband I had been. I joined a support group for divorced men, finding unexpected comfort in sharing stories with others who had walked similar paths. Some had been married for decades before discovery of an affair. Others had mutually decided to part ways. Each story was different, but the process of rebuilding was universal. I reconnected with old hobbies that had fallen by the wayside during my marriage. I took weekend hiking trips in the mountains, joined a local guitar group, and started a blog about personal growth after relationship trauma. These activities were not just distractions, they were reclamations of parts of myself I had neglected. Work became a positive focus rather than just a way to pay bills. I took on challenging projects, mentored junior engineers, and eventually received a promotion that came with a significant salary increase. Financial independence was empowering after years of joint decision-making and compromise. My relationships with family deepened, especially with Maria, who had stood by me throughout the ordeal. Sunday dinners at her house became a tradition. Her children, my honorary niece and nephew, giving me the family connection I had once hoped to build with Samantha. Dating again was intimidating at first. The first few attempts were awkward, stilted affairs where I found myself comparing every woman to Samantha, not because I missed her, but because I was afraid of making the same mistakes. Gradually, I learned to approach new relationships with cautious optimism rather than fear. I dated casually, enjoying female companionship without rushing toward commitment. Exactly 1 year after moving out, I bought my own condominium, a small but modern space in a downtown building with a view of the river. It was the first major purchase I had made entirely on my own, a symbol of my new independence. The same week I moved in, I ran into Samantha at a restaurant. She was with Jake, their hands intertwined on the table between them. Our eyes met across the room, and after a moment's hesitation, I walked over to their table. "Hello, Samantha." "Jake," I said, my voice steady. "I hope you are both well." Samantha looked up at me, surprise and something like shame crossing her features. "Roberto." You look good. Thank you. I am good, actually. Better than I've been in a long time. Jake shifted uncomfortably beside her, clearly uncertain of his role in this unexpected reunion. We exchanged brief pleasantries, discussed the sale of our house, and mutual acquaintances. There was no anger in me anymore, no lingering resentment. In fact, I felt a strange gratitude. Her betrayal had freed me from a marriage that had been hollow at its core. As I walked away from their table, back to my own dinner with friends, I realized the final piece had fallen into place. I could see Samantha clearly now, not as the villain in my story, but as someone who had her own journey, her own lessons to learn. And I wished her well on that journey, even as I embraced my own. The practice husband had become a complete person in his own right. The rehearsal was over. The real performance of life was underway, and I was finally the star of my own show. Looking back now, I understand that what felt like an ending was actually a beginning. I learned that self-respect is non-negotiable, that honest communication is the foundation of any relationship, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. I discovered that happiness does not depend on another person's validation, that loneliness and solitude are not the same thing, and that the right to define my worth belongs to me alone. I still believe in love, perhaps more genuinely now than when I thought I had found it with Samantha. I am dating someone new now, someone who values transparency and mutual growth. We take things slowly, building a foundation based on honest communication rather than romantic ideals. The practice husband became a wiser man, ready for a relationship that is not practice at all, but the real thing, valuable and worth protecting. If you have ever felt like someone's backup plan or stepping stone, know that you deserve to be someone's definitive choice, their final answer, their absolute yes. Have you ever discovered someone was not who you thought they were? How did you handle that revelation? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Share this with someone who might need to hear that they deserve to be more than practice. Thank you for listening, and remember, the path to self-respect might be painful, but it leads to freedom you cannot imagine until you walk it.